Havoc Demon Hunters are masters of using their warglaives paired with the demonic power of Fel to decimate their enemies. I'm going to show you everything to succeed as playing one in the War Within Season 1 today. It's going to be very beginner friendly and digestible, and I'm also going to show you everything you need to know if you are a veteran player. So there really is something for everyone in this video. Major stat then, looking at stat priorities first, is agility. Of course, higher and higher eye level or item level is what we want to get more agility and higher secondary stats. I would generally follow this priority of stats here for your secondary stats, but really you should only be looking at comparing these if you are comparing an item or two items of the same eye level. Saying it again, generally a higher eye level is always going to be better and will always be an upgrade. So, looking at the secondary stats we have Critical Strike, which is going to give you a chance to do more damage. Mastery is very specific for Havoc Demon Hunters. It's Demonic Presence. It's going to increase your chaos damage and also increase your movement speed, which is really important as a Demon Hunter. Haste is going to increase how quickly we attack and our spell casting speed. Then we have Versatility. It increases damage and healing done and reduces damage taken. Looking quickly at the set bonus while we're here that we're going to get in Season 1, it's called Husk of the Hypergeal Nemesis. The 2 set means that our Blade Dance ability does 20% more damage, very simple. And the 4 set means that our Chaos Strike ability deals 20% increased damage, has a 25% chance to reset the cooldown of Blade Dance, so Blade Dance, Chaos Strike, and reduce the Fury cost of it by 50%. So that is the main 2 abilities that our set bonus is working around in this season. If you don't know these abilities, don't worry, I'll be talking over them in full shortly. So now we're going to have a look at some of the utilities and defensives, etc. that we do have available to us as a Demon Hunter in the War Within. So, generally, the ones I'm showing you are what I like to consider the most important that you need to know about. There's always going to be bits and bobs that you may not know or that may be lurking in your spellbook, and I would advise that once you're more comfortable with the new rotation, etc., that you just make yourself familiar with what you do have available, especially if you are a beginner. So on the left here, we've got the first one, which is Vengeful Retreat. Remove all snares and vault away, like that. Nearby enemies take damage and they have their movement speed reduced by 70% for 3 seconds. So we're going to get out of the way and we're also going to actually slow down our enemy at the same time. Then we have Glide, which reduces your falling speed. This is, again, a very niche one. It depends when we're going to use this. You can activate this ability while jumping and falling. You can see here I'm gliding down, and this isn't on a cooldown either, meaning you can use this pretty much whenever you like. It can get you out of some really sticky situations on certain bosses, etc., that may throw you into the... We then have Disrupt, and this is literally our interrupt, or otherwise known as a kick. And this is the way that we are going to interrupt our enemies' spellcasting pretty simply. And if you are a beginner, I must let you know that interrupting spellcasting is incredibly powerful and important in both Mythic Plus and PvP. Raiding, not as often, but it still can be important on certain bosses that need interrupts. But you should be interrupting spellcasting whenever you possibly can on your... Then we have Imprison. This is going to imprison a demon, beast, or humanoid, incapacitating them for an entire minute. You cannot damage them, or that will interrupt the effect. So again, it is only actually applicable to certain types of enemies, that being demons, beasts, or humanoids. Then we have Metamorphosis. This is something I'm going to cover more in the rotation part. However, it's a really, really useful cooldown that I want to make you aware of now. So as you can see, you go into, Big Daddy Demon mode, leap into the air and land, dealing chaos damage to enemies within 8 yards, and then stun them for 3 seconds. Players are dazed for 3 seconds instead. Say if you do it in PvP, basically, it's 3 seconds instead. Upon landing, you are transformed into a hellish demon for 20 seconds, greatly empowering your Chaos Strike and Blade Dance abilities and gaining 20% haste and 12% leech. So you can see leech on here. So basically these are, we have our primary stat ability, our secondary stats, crit, haste, mastery, verse, and then leech is what I like to call a tertiary stat. And we have leech, avoidance, and speed. Speed, speeding you up. Avoidance, meaning you can avoid AoE damage. and leech meaning that, of course, you return a portion of damage back as healing. So you're only going to see that on your stats when you have some of it. If you don't have any leech, avoidance, or speed, you won't see the stat on your... Then we have darkness, summoning darkness around you in an 8-yard radius, granting friendly targets a 15% chance to avoid all damage from an attack. Chance to avoid damage is increased when not in a raid. So if you're on your own or you're in a party, like a Mythic Plus group or a dungeon group, then that chance is massively increased. Then Sigil of Mastery, you can see it places this sigil on the floor. When the enemies then touch it, like they just did, they are going to cower in fear and be disoriented for 15s. And those are the main utilities and sort of defensive abilities, etc., that we've got available to us as a Demon Hunter in Season 1, Patch 11 of The War Within. Like I said before, do look through the Demon Hunter talent tree and the spell book, because there sometimes are other utilities that may have more niche uses, but for any beginners watching, or just people coming back to The War Within, or looking at the new rotations for it, I don't want to overwhelm you. So now the fun part, which is the actual rotation we're going to play as a Demon Hunter in The War Within. Now, we're going to start off with the raid build, which is going to be using the Aldrachi Reaver hero talents. The keystone talent on here being Art of the Glaive. Consuming 6 soul fragments, which sometimes we will be causing, or casting the hunt, converts your next throw glaive into Reaver's Glaive. So, at number 1 on the priority here, we will be using throw glaive, but only when it is a Reaver's Glaive. Throw a demonic glaive at the target, dealing damage. The glaive can ricochet to additional targets. And again, once we use the hunt, you'll see that this is going to transform, and that's when we're using it at number 1 priority. Number 2 is Vengeful Retreat, where you basically vault away, dealing nearby damage to enemies. And then we're going to go back in with the hunt. Charge to your target, striking them for damage, rooting them in place, and inflicting chaos damage over them over 6 seconds and up to 5 enemies in our path. The pursuit invigorates you, healing you for some of the damage that you've dealt. And you can then see that we have Reaver's Glaive. And Reaver's Glaive, again, is your top priority. So not Throw Glaive, only when it's Reaver's Glaive. Then use Vengeful Retreat, then use the Hunt. And then we're actually going to use our Blade Dance, but it's not quite as it seems. You'll notice under it, I've put Metamorphosis, and under our Chaos Strike, I've put Metamorphosis. So Blade Dance, strike your primary target for damage, and nearby enemies for damage reduced beyond 5 targets. This is actually going to be enhanced to Death Sweep. And you'll notice it's the same here with Annihilation when you're in Metamorphosis. We're only using it here when we're in Metamorphosis, and it's called Death Sweep. What I've done is I've put these here on the other action bar to make it really obvious when you're using the normal ability or the enhanced version. Maybe you could do the same if you are a beginner and you're finding it complex to keep up. So basically, use Blade Dance if it is called Death Sweep here, but use Blade Dance when it's just a normal version here. Then we're going to use Sigil of Spite and placing that up to where your enemy is. Place a demonic sigil at the target location, and it's going to detonate, shattering up to some lesser soul shards. And collecting these is going to give you those buffs that you need for Art of the Glaive, which will enhance your Throw Glaive from the hero talents. And I will be going through the hero talents in full details shortly. After that, we're going to be using Metamorphosis, leap into the air, and then come down with Explosive Force, dealing chaos damage to enemies and turning into a demon, empowering your Chaos Strike and Blade Dance abilities and gaining haste and leech, but only use this if I-Beam is on cooldown. I-Beam then blasts all enemies in front of you, dealing guaranteed critical strikes as chaos damage as well. When it is fully finished channeling, your haste is increased for 10 seconds. And what we can do then is use that combat buff with the haste, etc., with our Metamorphosis, further increasing our haste. Use Blade Dance without being in Metamorphosis here. Use Chaos Strike, otherwise known as Annihilation, at this point when you are in your Metamorphosis. And then we can use our Fell Blade here, specifically if we're under 80 Fury. Fury is the main resource we're going to be using as a Demon Hunter, and this charges to your target and does damage. Demon Blades have a chance to reset the cooldown of Fell Blade, and you can see here it generates 40 Fury. And because we have 120, we only want to use it under 80 Fury so we don't overcap on our Fury. Then we have Sigil of Flame. We're going to use that at this lower priority. Place a Sigil of Flame at the target, dealing chaos damage and an additional amount over 8 seconds to all enemies. And again, only use this under 90 Fury because this also generates 30 Fury. So again, we don't want to overcap. Apart from that, use Immolation Aura on cooldown at this low priority down here. And if you've got nothing else to press, then just use Throw Glaive. It is quite complex, I'm very aware. There is a lot to remember here. That's why I've put the Metamorphosis on here to help you kind of remember it. If you are struggling, just watch this part of the video back until you get it and practice along, maybe with me, on the target dummies. So for this Havoc build, we are going with Aldrachi Reaver hero talents. This is already cooked into the rotation I have shown you, but I want to go over these in more detail because they are the new big thing. You know, hero talents are completely new to the game, so I think it's good to have a look at why we are doing some of the things we are doing. Art of the Glaive. Consuming 6 soul fragments or casting the Hunt converts your next throw glaive into Reaver's Glaive. What does Reaver's Glaive then do? Throw a glaive enhanced with the essence of a consumed soul at your target, dealing damage, and it also will ricochet to nearby enemies. It begins a well-practiced pattern of glaive work, enhancing your next Chaos Strike and Blade Dance. The enhanced ability you cast first deals increased damage, and the second deals increased further damage. So, going down the left side, first we have Fury of the Aldrachi. When enhanced by Reaver's Glaive, Demon Dance casts 3 additional glaive slashes to nearby targets, and if cast after Chaos Strike, cast 6 slashes instead of 3. Aldrachi Tactics. The second enhanced ability in a pattern shatters an additional soul fragment. Incisive Blade. Chaos Strike deals more damage. Pretty simple there. First choice node. Evasive Action. Vengeful Retreat can be cast a second time. Or Unhindered Assault, where Vengeful Retreat resets the cooldown of Fellblade. Another choice node. In fact, we've got all the choice nodes in the middle here. Army unto oneself. Fellblade surrounds you with Blade Ward, reducing damage taken. Or each soul fragment you consume shields you for an additional amount. Third one, Preemptive Strike. Throw Glaive deals damage to enemies near its initial target, or Reaver's Glaive generates 20 Fury. And lastly, on the right, we have Reaver's Mark. When enhanced by Reaver's Glaive, Chaos Strike applies Reaver's Mark, which causes the target to take increased damage, and if it's cast after Blade Dance, Reaver's Mark is also increased to 14%. While Reaver's Mark is on the target, melee strikes of an additional Glaive Slash for extra damage, and have a chance to also shatter a soul. And Warglade's Thunder, consuming a soul fragment causes your next Chaos Strike to deal more additional damage, and Fellblade will consume up to 5 nearby soul fragments. Lastly, Thrill of the Fight. After consuming both enhancements, you gain Thrill of the Fight, increasing your attack speed for 20 seconds and your damage and healing as well. Now, if any of that sounded convoluted or confusing, again, this is all passives that are happening without you really having to worry about it, as long as you follow the rotation I have shown. But it is pretty interesting how the Aldrachi Reaver hero talents all do work together, with all the passives, etc. they are giving us. Now, if we look at the Mythic Plus build, you're going to see we're actually going into Fel-Scarred instead of Aldrachi Reaver, where basically we get Demon Surge, where Metamorphosis now also causes Demon Blades to generate additional Fury. It's very going around your Metamorphosis, etc. It's an even longer rotation, but don't let it scare you. It is slightly simpler, sort of. So we have this spell here, which is not at the start of the rotation, I know, but it's called Essence Break. And specifically, we're going to be using these 2 abilities here when we're in our Essence Break, but also in our Metamorphosis. So anyway, Essence Break. Slash all enemies in front of you and increase the damage your Chaos Strike and Blade Dance deal to them by 80%, which is obviously humongous amounts of damage to increase it by. And that is these 2 abilities here. Now, when we go into Metamorphosis, remember, it's actually going to enhance these 2 abilities, meaning when we're in Essence Break and therefore these 2 abilities are going to deal more damage, it means that we're going to do even more damage because we're in Metamorphosis. So your number 1 and 2 priorities are actually going to be to use Death Sweep and Annihilation, but only during Essence Break and Metamorphosis together. If those 2 things are not happening, then you're going to just follow this normal rotation down. We have this talent here, Unbound Chaos. Activating Immolation Aura increases the damage of your next Fel Rush by 250%. So again, when we use our Immolation Aura, it's then going to enhance your Fel Rush, and you're going to use your Fel Rush as your top priority. So Fel Rush is the top priority, but only after using Immolation Aura. Immolation Aura engulf yourself in flames, instantly causing chaos damage to enemies within 8 yards and radiating chaos damage out, and it will generate 60 fury over 10 seconds. After that, just the same as in single target, we're going to use our Vengeful Retreat and then the Hunt, and then our Sigil of Flame. Pretty similar to single target there, where we're just following these through. Then we're going to use our Essence Break, and then we're going to use Death Sweep, so that's going to be if Metamorphosis has enhanced this spell again. And then before we use our I-Beam, we're going to use Sigil of Flame, and then we're going to use our I-Beam, which will sometimes again put us into Metamorphosis, so if you use Essence Break and you're actually in it, that is still fine. And then we're pretty much just following the rest of it down. So it's going to be Blade Dance, and then it's going to be Glaive Tempest. Launch 2 demonic glaives in a whirlwind of energy, causing chaos damage over 3 seconds to nearby enemies. And then it's going to be using your Annihilation. So if this is enhanced by your Metamorphosis, use Chaos Strike. Then it's going to be Fell Blade, then actual Chaos Strike, and lastly, Throw Glaive if there are no other available buttons. So these last kind of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 spells is really kind of just like if you've got nothing left, because remember, it is a priority list, not a rotation. So if we have Essence Break and we're in Metamorphosis here, we're going to be using Death Sweep and then Annihilation. If not, it's going to be Fel Rush, but only after using Immolation Aura. And then it's going to be Vengeful Retreat and then the Hunt, your Sigil, using Essence Break, using Death Sweep, using Metamorphosis, using Sigil of Doom, and then your I-Beam, or Abyssal Gaze as it's now called, when you're under these effects. Then it's going to be in a Death Sweep again, Glaive Tempest, Annihilation, Fell Blade, then Chaos Strike, and if you've got nothing else to press, then it's going to be your Throw Glaive. But always going further up to press what we can under those circumstances. And that is the full rotation for playing as a Demon Hunter in Mythic Plus, and now we're going to go through Fel-Scarred. So for this build, we are going with the Fel-Scarred hero talent. And I do want to just say that this is all already worked into rotation, but now we're looking into why, and the rotation was the what, if you will. So, as I said, we're going with Fel-Scarred. The keystone talent we're going to get is Demon Surge. Metamorphosis now also causes Demon Blades to generate additional amounts of fury. And while your demon form is active, the first cast of each empowered ability induces a Demon Surge, causing you to explode a Fel energy, doing fire damage to nearby enemies. Then we have our first choice node, Wave of Debilitation. Chaos Nova slows enemies by 60% and reduces attack speed and cast speed after its stun fades. Or you can just say that movement speed is increased per amount of fury that you have. Up to you on that one. Burning Blades, your blades burn a Fel energy, causing you your Chaos Strike, Throw Glaive, and auto attacks to deal additional damage as fire. So again, just more passive damage. Maximum Fury is increased here. Demon Surge deals increased damage when it strikes a single target. When you activate Metamorphosis, your cooldowns of Sigil of Flame and Immolation Aura are immediately reset, so some great cooldown reduction there. This is all quite straightforward so far. Flamebound, Immolation Aura has an increased radius and deals much more critical strike damage. Or you can go with Student of Suffering. Sigil of Flame applies Student of Suffering to you, increasing Mastery and granting Fury. Another choice node, the last one, is Set Fire to the Pain. 5% of all non-fire damage that you take is instead taken as fire damage. And fire damage taken is reduced. So basically, non-fire damage taken is then turned into fire damage, and it reduces how much fire damage we take, so therefore reduces our damage taken. Or you can go for Improved Soul Rending, where Leech granted by Soul Rending is increased, and an additional 2% while Metamorphosis is active. Enduring Torment, the effects of your demon form persist outside in its weakened state, increasing Chaos Strike and Blade Dance damage by 10% and increasing your haste as well. Agility is increased when you're not in your demon form, helping kind of bridge the gap between you and your demon form bit there. And then Demonic Intensity, activating Metamorphosis, greatly empowers I-Beam, Immolation Aura, and Sigil of Flame. Demon Surge damage is increased by 10% for each time it previously triggered while your form is active. So it's all revolving around our Metamorphosis, etc. And, you know, there's nothing groundbreaking in here. It really is just, again, bridging the gap a little bit between our normal form and demon form and enhancing our Metamorphosis ability. And now finally onto the consumables and enchants we're going to be using in the War Within as a Havoc Demon Hunter. So we are going to be going off from the weekly vault with these Nerubian gem weavers. This is the new way to add sockets to your gear with the weekly vault, and you can do this on the head, wrist, and waist. You can now also add 2 gem slots to your neck and each ring. Apart from that, the enchants we're using: Winged Grace on the cloak, adding avoidance and full damage reduction; Crystalline Radiance on the chest, adding primary stat; Avoidance on the wrist; Defender's Armor Kit, which actually will give you primary stat and stamina on your legs; Defender's March on the boots; and then Haste on your rings is probably the best way to go. And then Authority of the Depths on your weapons. Authority of the Depths basically has a chance when you deal damage to add suffocating darkness to your attacks, and that can stack 3 times. Now, looking at the actual consumables, I would generally go with the Tempered Versatility, just for better all-round damage reduction and damage increase. Feast of the Divine Day for your primary stat. A Tempered Potion is really interesting. This is actually going to give you all of the secondary stats as a potion that you are not using on your flask or file. Healing Potion, obviously. Iron Claw Whetstone we can actually put on our weapon. They are bringing, whetstones, etc. back, where they were called, whatever they called them in Dragonflight. Crystallized Augment Runes, if you are using an Augment Rune, would be the one to go for. And then on the sockets, we're going with Culminating Blasphemite. Basically, this epic gem will increase your primary stat and also increase your critical effect, depending on how many different coloured gems you're wearing. So we do want to wear a Ruby, Sapphire, Emerald, and Onyx to get the full effect from that gem. Thank you so much for watching this guide. I hope it was really useful for you in The War Within Season 1, whether it was for Mythic Plus or raiding. If you do have any questions, I'll be happy to help. My Patreon is in the description below, and that is where you can find my LVUI profiles, which I'll show you in a second. And also, I'm putting together a huge macro list for every single spec that's going to be really useful for you in The War Within as well. I am doing all classes and specs for The War Within, so if you are new to the channel, then please do click this playlist here to check out what else I have, which is all of them. There will also be PvP guides on this channel as well for War Within Season 1, so make sure to look out for that. This here is the UI that I was referring to. As you can see, we've got target frames, etc., left and right, and raid frames go in the middle here, and then weak auras in the middle with an action bar down here. Chat is behind where my camera is. Minimap and details, etc., are here on the right. All of the Plater profiles, the Voodoo, the LVUI, etc., details profile has all been made by me. And again, you can get this on my Patreon should you like it.